Hi, this is Eternal King here, bringing you another LOR video today. So I wanted to talk about deck durability. This is a problem I see quite a bit in terms of the way people are building for Eternal right now. I'm not sure if I'm running into a lot of casual players or if this is representative of the entire community, but it seems like if they aren't specifically building in Demacia or they aren't building with Temple, they essentially cannot succeed in this format. Which is very strange to me. For those that don't know, I've been building decks since Out of Cards. I used to be, one of the top Eternal deck builders in Out of Cards. This is before I started getting like any serious about the competitive nature of the game. Because again, you had greats like Majin Bay and people like that, and it just didn't really seem like the right time for me. But at this point, it's very, very clear that there are few people who can properly compete with me in the Eternal format. And again, it was demonstrated by me essentially hitting Masters in like a weekend's time of casual play and just steamrolling everybody in the community, and then continuing to do so with my own decks on casual ladder. It's just there's really no competition. But talking about deck durability. The concept is exceptionally simple. It means that taking a deck that has a theme and that is an off-meta deck, it could be Thralls is one example. It could be, something as simple as Samara Auction. It could be something like Elusive Spam. It could be something like Deep. It could be something like Transform. It could be something like Poros or Bird Aggro or any of these decks. It could be something like Kindred, Evelyn. Like, it doesn't matter which deck that we're talking about. The point is, the idea of deck durability is that the lists that you're building are able to be piloted throughout time. We'll take a look at my Transform list first. I built this on Out of Cards probably a year or two ago. Possibly 2 years ago, because none of these cards are new. I think I built this a year or two ago for the extended card format before there was the distinction between Standard and Eternal. So pre-rotation, Transform. We're talking about an old school deck. I built this to essentially combo things like Curious Changeling with Teeny Dactyl and other Transform effects because I thought that was really fun. Curious Changeling, if you don't know, is a card that says when an allied follower transforms into another follower, transform me into an exact copy. Essentially being the best synergy point for a transform deck. But even back then, unchanging this list, everything about this just works, right? You have your Pie Toss to Perilous Pastry things in the face. You have your Poison Dart and your Pokey Stick, so we have tons of pings to potentially remove units, but more likely activate Transform when we need to. Inventive Chemist, of course, triggering on turn 4 with Scrappy Bomb. Stone Stackers and Tusk Speaker, turboing Sejuani and also activating Transform when we need them to. Chief Nekatak and Curious Changeling being the core synergy points, and then we have Merkwolf Shaman. It draws, so if you don't know that this is a cycle unit, when I transform, I draw a unit. Teeny Dactyl, of course, being the best transform card that you know of. It pings the enemy nexus every single turn, which is again turboing Sejuani. And then Gnar is going to transform. It's just a good card for removal and control. And Spotted Toad is going to ping the entire enemy board for 1 damage, which can be a difference maker in certain situations. And otherwise, it's just a big 6/7 impact Giga Chomp. It's a big frog. This is a very large Froggo. And then Sejuani and Minity. So this deck that I built, 2 years ago, a year ago on on Out of Cards, and you can also find on Runeterra AR more recently, which I just reposted and people loved it. Like, these lists are durable and they stand the test of time. There is nothing about LOR as a card game that has fundamentally changed. Yes, we've had rotation. Yes, Standard is its own thing. But core LOR, the Eternal format that has existed since vanilla LOR, that core format has not changed significantly with the passage of time. Nothing about it has. Sure, new decks show up when new tech becomes available, but the core, old decks, nothing about them is inherently worse. Jace Lux, of course, being a core example. Jace was introduced a long time ago with his 6 mana package, and Jace Lux remains one of the top meta decks in Eternal to this day. It has like a strong 57% win rate for a control deck, and there's nothing about it that is inherently bad. There are things about it that are very strong. And of course, it's my version that is built to be as durable as possible. And then, of course, you've got burn aggro. So, this style of deck has existed a very long time as well. So Phantom Prankster plus Neverglade Collector, this was popularized by Swim. So if you don't know, Swim used to love his Shadow Burn, his Shadow Isles burn decks. He was a big fan of that. So again, something like this, while it has been updated over the course of time and made better, the core concept of, jamming Phantom Prankster and then potentially running, he used to run something like, he used to run the Haunted Relic, which, if you have a Phantom Prankster, you play Haunted Relic, it burns for 3, and like, that's okay. I guess you could replace Unspeakable Horror with the Haunted Relic, but typically I prefer Use Cast Salesman. I think Use Cast Salesman just does everything that Haunted Relic does better. It summons 2 ephemeral units, and each ephemeral unit is also triggering for 1 damage, so it'll do more damage than the Haunted Relic most of the time. But if you want to do the Haunted Relic in the Phantom Prankster shell, go for it. Again, he used to back then. I prefer not to. So again, building your decks to be as durable as humanly possible. We can look at this. So I just built this last week. This is Returno Wrench, right? So Returno Wrench, the whole idea of this deck was to build a discard aggro shell that had infinite discard fodder. So whether it is the Yorl Squire coming out on turn 1, the Fallen Rider, or the Returno Wrench, or the 3 Lost Souls, the entire idea of the deck is that it would never run out of discard fodder, and it would also provide enough tempo to deal with some of the best decks in the game. So again, you Squeaker, the Returno Wrench, and then you get your card off the Squeaker, and then Squeaker dies, and then you get the Returno Wrench back, and then you discard it with the Bilgerat Rascal, and then Bilgerat Rascal dies, and you get your Returno Wrench back, etc., etc. It basically serves the same purpose as Lost Soul. So again, this deck, as much as it is a meme, it is a durable meme that does what it's supposed to do, which is never run out of cards, despite having, hard running the 3 Rumbles and discarding non-stop with Mecha Yordles. It will not run out of cards, making it as durable as possible. Thralls, right? So again, Thralls is a deck that is very hard to play in Eternal right now. I would argue that Thralls is one of the toughest decks to play in Eternal, with any seriousness to it. And so you can see that my version is very almost control oriented: triple Avalanche, triple Blighted, triple Quicksand, lots of Chumpers, Preservationist. Being kind of one of the cards that was buffed recently, so advancing landmarks by 3, but also just being a good 4/4 body that will block into most things. And then, Horn Swarm Caller and Sands of Time and blah, 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 and Succumb to the Cold. So again, everything about this deck is built to be as durable as possible. It will struggle into certain things. Again, Demacia. Right, Demacia is problematic. You can Quicksand away the Formidable tag, and then you can try to Horn Swarm Caller the Formidable tag, but it's very card specific. Evelyn, right? So Evelyn is a card that you don't see very often anymore in Eternal, and so I wanted to build it to be as durable as possible with things like triple Hate Spike, triple Death's Grasp, triple Glimpse, triple Crumble, and then the triple Vengeance, and the proper high end with the Spectral Iron Hound. But yeah, it still has all the other good stuff: Steam, Kindred, Evelyn, Vora, Domination, Salter, even Eris. So again, lots and lots of Thralls. So infinite Thrall generation, healthy removal package, and a proper top end, and challenging stuff as well as needed. So again, every deck that I build, I try to let it last the test of time. My intention is never, when I build a deck, my intention is never, oh my god, I want a bunch of likes on this deck on a website. Which again, I get. Like, I have decks on there with 60, 50 likes, doesn't matter. Like, and no one even knows who I am, so that's pretty good. But I build decks with the idea of like, okay, I actually want to play this again sometime. For me, for my own sake, I like these decks because I enjoy playing them. because they're strong, right? At the end of the day, I'm building decks that are durable and strong. You know, if I want to run Blood Cursed Harpy again in Ornn with the Vayne rally giving me, you know, the Vayne will full rally the Blood Cursed Harpy with Scout and stuff. Like, if I want to run that again, I can. It all depends on how much I want to play Omen Hawk into Snow Dog, because a lot of decks do kind of run that. It's a very popular combo. Deep, right? So again, anti-aggro deep. I talked about this before in the deep equation. Like, what is the right way to run deep? Objectively, the correct way to run deep. I believe it is anti-aggro deep, personally. I believe anti-aggro deep is the most competitive version of deep, which means you are running things like Quietus, the Triple Thorny Toad, the Soul Harvest, Undergrowth, all this stuff to essentially allow you to survive, as well as Triple Megatusk, like all of this stuff, all of this healing, all of this easy removal and sustain, all this stuff, just because you're more confident that by the time Nautilus levels and you can just play your big, you know, once you go deep with Nautilus, that like you're pretty sure you're gonna get there, right? Like, I'm very confident with deep that like I will get there. You know, once the flip happens. My concern is not being given the time to get there, right? Which means, yes, anti-aggro deep, the most comprehensive anti-aggro package I can run in a deep deck to ensure that I can do all the rest of the stuff. Because again, durability is my first priority. Now, when it comes to durability, how do you define that when you're building decks? Well, my concept is always like, what ends if I had to face myself? So I like playing Meta Ziggs Poppy a lot of the time. It served me well at a massive win rate when I was climbing, and I climbed to Masters and Eternal in like a weekend of non-sweaty play, pretty much before any other streamer did. I believe the next streamer was playing mid-range Demacia, and he got there about a week later from me. So I was the fastest climber. He did well too. I believe we both ended up hitting Masters with the exact same score, so like he did well too. But the whole idea being that like if someone plays 3 1-drops and then a Ziggs and then a Poppy, does my Nexus explode? That's the idea of durability, right? The whole point of this deck is to punish a lack of durability. If I play 3 1-drops, then a Ziggs, and then a Poppy, does my Nexus explode, right? Does yours explode? The answer is yes, your deck probably has no right existing. And that's an awful thing to say, but it is also true in the most competitive sense. And the other question, which is usually easier for people to answer, is how do you deal with mid-range Demacia, right? Well, you know, mid-range Demacia can be stunned and removed, and there's lots of different sorts of answers. So maybe you have an easier time dealing with that, but the main question that I always ask myself is, does my Nexus explode to Ziggs Poppy? The answer to, in a lot of my decks, it might be no, right? You know, elusive spam has things like Sparklefly, right? So if you can get a big Sparklefly on board when the aggro deck is doing aggro things, you might actually be able to survive, right? Just by like bursting it out bigger and bigger each time. So, you know, your Nexus might not explode in that case. Returner Wrench, you know, you might have enough chumpers and discard units to get your big, you know, level champ on the board for overwhelm damage. It really does depend on the way that you build your deck. So any deck that is good should be able to be piloted multiple times. So I'll give you an example of someone else's deck that I think was built very well. And it was this. So someone built this, and it was for standard, and it was Aatrox Kayn. And so there were things about Aatrox Kayn that just make it inherently weak because it is a standard deck, but even then, the builder had the concept of like, okay, I want to make sure I have enough equipment cards. 3 Darkened Ballista, 3 Darkened Bloodletters, 3 Darkened Harps, giving this a very stable equipment package. So you should always prioritize creature draws, because chances are equipment draws are going to be happening. The Furious Wielder, Heedless Resurrection, right, the Frostbite, and then Utter Devastation as a 1 of board clear is super nice tech. So like this is a durable deck that the opponent built, or that the community member built, and that I fully stand behind. Like I played this quite a bit. I won some games. I think the power level is relatively low for Eternal, but just by having built it as durable as possible, the community member gave me a deck that I can play, that I view as well built and fun and good enough. It's not Kane Aatrox's fault that it's a standard deck, that it's just a little bit below the power curve. This construction is about as good as it gets. You're not getting better than that. So, when you are building decks, try to build for the test of time. Try to build sustainable. And, you know, try to build it like you're running into meta decks all the time. Just imagine you're playing me every single game, and I'm playing 3 1-drops, a Ziggs, and a Poppy. And, like, does your Nexus explode? The answer is yes, you might be in trouble. We can delete that. And it does seem, you know, even the previous crutch, which was kind of it was the Eddy crutch, right? So before we had the Demacia and Temple crutch, we had the Eddy crutch, right? Where it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to jam the same tempo 6 drops into every shell, and just whatever tempo's out early best ends up being the best Eddy deck. We have seen that fall off a little bit. But again, like, there's nothing stopping you from running this. There's nothing stopping you from running Auction with a bunch of strikes and protection spells, and then just jamming Captain Arnica to capture something, and then Enraged Fire Spitter to Mystic Shot something. This shell is fine, right? So again, this is, you know, the Eddy crutch of just like, I don't know what my top end should be, so I'm just going to jam this stuff. But the thing is, it's not necessary. It's not necessary at all. I actually tend to play the Eddy crutch Auction a lot less than I play Samara Auction. So this is the deck that I built pre-patch, and I said that was going to be exceptionally powerful. And to this day, I actually prefer this deck in a lot of cases over the Eddy shell. I don't think you need the tempo 6 drops if you know how to combo out Samara Auction properly. If you know how to flip Samara, and if you know how to rally with Samara, and take advantage of those synergies, I don't think you need the tempo 6 drop crutch. I really don't think you do. And plus you've got, you know, Golden Ambassador on 4 and Varuk and Bruiser, and like, these are good cards. Very, very strong cards. You don't need the tempo 6 drops. So again, durability is the #1 goal, but durability is also the only goal. So, you know, if you build a ramp shell, do lose instantly to 3 1-drops, a Ziggs, and a Poppy. If you do, your ramp shell is built wrong. And so at the end of the day, durability is the only goal. This is Eternal King, signing out.